Friendo, Steve here.
Larson.
Welcome back to Going in Rock. Count out on this episode. We are talking about the creative missteps, the blunders, if you will, of one Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Why? Because he's done, man. He's out of here. He's gone. And we thought it'd be a cool idea to take a look back at Vince McMahon during his time in WWE, which has been like, I don't know, a century now or whatever it is.
Yeah, it feels that way. It does feel that way.
Old.
So, there's going to be a lot of here's the thing. We could do a list of like 100 of Vince's creative misfires.
1,000.
And blunders.
Yeah.
And drop balls and all that. I think what we're really highlighting here are the stupendously, to use a word that Vince is apparently fond of for a stretch, awful, and decisions that seemingly either literally cost the company money or left money on the table.
Yeah, and also things that were so egregious that you can't help but think, man, people had to have been tuning out of this.
Yeah.
And so, these are the most egregious blunders, be it from a situation, like you said, where it literally cost the company money, or just infamously so bad that people can't stop talking about it to this day. People will still be talking about how bad some of these were. So you guys get the point. Vince is gone. Time to celebrate his legacy of being just, look, man, he did plenty of decent things too, in terms of like creatively speaking, but I don't know, as a human being.
No, awful.
I don't think so.
Terrible.
So let's go ahead and dive into it. Number 10.
10.
Oh, anonymous Raw GM. This is bad. This is
bad. Like, there's a couple entries on this list that occurred when I wasn't really watching professional wrestling, and I'm happy I missed those periods. This is one of those periods where I caught the tail end of it. Very tail end. So it started June 21st, 2010. And another entry on this list directly preceded this. So they went from one bad era to another bad era.
Yeah.
Concluded July 18th, 2011. I remember I was sitting at your house at the recliner, the chair you used to have out in your TV room. And I watched. No, this is 2011. You were at the old house then, weren't you?
Yeah. I was at the old house. Yeah.
So I was at the old house. I was probably sitting on the couch at your old house there, and watched WrestleMania 27 with you. That was, of course, the Mania that featured not only Miz in the main event, but also heel Michael Cole wrestling Jerry Lawler. And somehow, I don't know how it happened, I continued to watch after that. You think after watching that awful WrestleMania, I'd be like, I'm not going back to watch this stuff. Yet I did.
Yeah, wrestling does have sort of an addictive quality to it. And that's probably why. But I remember watching. I think I was watching a little bit longer than you were at that time, so I caught a lot more of the anonymous Raw general manager. I think eventually it came out that like the idea was that it would be Nash. I think that was like one of the main. Look, number one, I think they went into this without really knowing who it was going to be. It wasn't like this was set up to be somebody, and they were leaving clues.
Yeah, this quote here from Kevin Eck that yes, no plans. Going into it as far as who it was going to be.
In that quote, does he say at all like any possible suggestions along the way, like ideas? Because I swear I heard at one point it was going to be Kevin Nash.
Could be. Let me check. Here, carry on. I'll...
In any event, it sort of like ruined the sound of the iPhone text message for the longest time, and it was just a convenient way. It was a plot device where they would just, you need something good to happen, you need something bad to happen. Like the anonymous GM, it didn't really go along like heel or face lines. Like sometimes it would screw over the faces, sometimes it would, keep the heels in check. Whenever the crowd needed to groan, whenever WWE felt, you know what, we really need this crowd to groan over a lazy story beat, we're going to use the anonymous Raw GM, because you think, this character has something figured out. He has a clear path to victory or what have you. Michael Cole would get up there and he'd read this stupid thing and be like, okay. I mean, he was in terms of like, if somebody had this idea that it would be some sort of like Kafka-esque plot device where it's like, we don't know who this voice of God is coming down from on high, then, I mean, I guess maybe in a way mission accomplished, but it was just lazy. It was really lazily implemented.
Yeah. So apparently, I don't know if this is a joke, but Kevin Eck mentioned that he wanted to be Kevin Nash, but Nash had to keep his identity secret because he was still in TNA.
He was still under contract, a different place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he was like, okay, we might bring him in. And then eventually I think it was revealed to be Hornswoggle.
It was, yes, Hornswoggle.
But,
yes,
I mean, that was
correct.
like when they wanted to make... It was a joke because it was never announced or it was never revealed who it was. And so, on one of the silly episodes, like, I don't know, anniversary episode or a Legends episode or something, it was like, oh, it was Hornswoggle, which didn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was Hornswoggle was also revealed to be Vince's illegitimate child.
Yeah, right. It was always like, yeah. So according on this Reddit thread to piggyback onto the Eck thing, with Nash, they could have refined and compromised. According to Eck's account, with Nash, they could have refined and compromised on a good idea. Instead, with Hornswoggle, they refine and compromise on a bad idea. Yeah, I mean, look, if it was somebody like Nash and they had left like clues along the way, but then that was sort of like how they always did things. It was like the higher power. It was like there were no clues that contradicted like previous shit that had happened. Yeah. It was just, well, Vince can't figure anything out, so we're going to go ahead and make it Vince because it's the most obvious. I remember when that happened. When he unveiled himself, it was just like you and I were both like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Because it makes sense. It's underwhelming, but it makes sense.
Not because of a story reason, but because it's just so obvious that he would make it himself.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, and it seemed like far too often, I'm sure there's be other instances in this list, we're going to talk about this, where there's an idea, they roll with it with no plan past idea phase.
Yeah.
There's no outline form. There's no endpoint. It's just, hey, we have idea. Okay, let's do it. How's it going to end? I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll work it out.
Yeah. As opposed to what we've been talking about a lot now since Triple H has taken over, and you go back to Triple H's days in the Black and Gold brand, ideas would be set up and they would pay off, which is and you would get a through line of like logical steps to an idea, like actual storytelling. Yes. Back then, like just setting up and just putting a thing out there and then assuming you're going to figure out what it is when it's a very specific thing that really needs to have something lined up. That's just how they did it back then. And it was stupid and it was really bad.
Yeah, it's usually really bad. Yes. Yeah. Really bad. All these are really bad, but yes, bad.
These are all going to be bad. That's the whole point of the list. Next up, number 9. Sergeant Slaughter's heel turn. So, oh boy, one of the most popular characters in the 80s in WWF.
He had a G.I. Joe action figure. I know because I had it.
Yeah, right. Was that a write-in one, or was that just a one you
had
can
to take the things from the cards of the other toys you bought and send those in? You spent money on like 5 G.I. Joes. You send the proof of purchase in, and they'd send you a free G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Sergeant Slaughter was one of them. I had that one.
Yeah. So let's see here. In 1990, according to... back in, when is this? 84.
So it was after WrestleMania, what is it, 6? So after Warrior beat Hogan in Toronto. Apparently, Vince was trying to convince Slaughter to come back. And he wanted to come back as a heel.
Yeah.
But he wanted him to align with Nikolai Volkov.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Slaughter's like, nah, I'm not going to do that. I got to cut anti-American promos. Not going to do that. Mm-hmm. So somehow he was convinced to be an Iraqi sympathizer.
Yeah, so like, in
the midst of the first Gulf War.
Like, if I'm not mistaken, if the timeline matches up, like, like the Cold War had pretty much come to like a conclusion, if I'm not mistaken. Around that time, the wall came down and, Reagan was negotiating
summits and all that kind of stuff. Yes.
With very important summits.
Very important summits. Camp David,
Yeah, Camp David. And so like, but Slaughter was like, no, I don't want to do like the stuff with the Russian guy, but an actual conflict that's happening now where real people are dying. I'm totally down being, a sympathizer for the other side. So it's, I guess they were like, okay, well, Vince was always big. This is like around the time Vince was getting really big into like, oh, it's happening in the real world. Let's reference it on TV, which came to a full fruition in '93 when Raw started because they wanted it to be like, oh, every episode you read headlines from the newspaper, some shit like that.
That's what people watch wrestling for, to get the news. Yeah,
right, exactly. And so the decision was made to have Slaughter support the Iraqi side of the war there. And but apparently, according to this Wikipedia entry, anyways, it wasn't for the actual political reasons, which I doubt any of them even fully understood. But it's because Slaughter liked brutality, and the Iraqi government was brutal, while the U.S. regime was said by Slaughter to become soft and weak. And then he became like or he aligned himself with an Iraqi military general,
General Adnan.
General Adnan.
Yeah. So they had Slaughter beat Ultimate Warrior for the title at Rumble 91.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, this was after
mere days.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is also like Warrior just had like 8-month reign as champion after beating Hogan.
Yeah. Right.
And so Vince really wanted the story of Hogan beating Slaughter at WrestleMania 8. And so the WrestleMania 8 was originally supposed to take place in Los Angeles Coliseum. It's a giant stadium. They've held the Olympics there. That is where the USC Trojans play college football.
Yeah.
They have huge events there. It's a massive place. They didn't sell enough tickets because like Hulkamania was on the wane. This whole thing just apparently put people off so much. They're like, no, I'm not going to spend my money and sit out, like half a mile away from the ring to watch Hogan pose after he beats Slaughter. Yeah. They had to move WrestleMania, the whole show, from the Coliseum, a huge venue, to the Los Angeles Sports Arena.
Yeah.
Your usual size 1980s basketball arena, so like 12,000 people.
Yeah.
So from a business perspective, I don't know if Warrior Hogan 2 was under consideration for that to main event WrestleMania 7 rather than Slaughter and Hogan. But, and I don't have any data in front of me to suggest directly that this story led to such a decline in interest they couldn't sell enough tickets to justify having Mania in the Coliseum. But Mania 6, Sky Dome in Toronto. Mania 8, Hoosier Dome in Indianapolis. So one kind of sticks out like a sore thumb.
It does, yeah.
In that era of WrestleMania, Mania 9 at Caesar's Palace. They're doing these huge event WrestleManias at the time. And the fact that they had to take this one out of the stadium, put it in an arena, sell way fewer tickets, make way less money off it.
Yeah.
Suggests that from a creative standpoint, no one was into this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame them. Like, this is terrible. It's really awful. Like the Rumble match was in January of '91, and it was just a couple days after the air campaign in the Gulf War kicked off. So like every night on cable news, it's like, oh yeah, people are dying.
Well, I remember Bernard Shaw reporting.
Yeah,
like while bombing campaigns were happening.
Yeah,
you know.
And then it's like, oh, you want to be like the one thing that you can like find some escapism in. No, we're injecting that, directly into the product. Yeah, it's pretty bad. And then so they did at SummerSlam. Like he still feuded with Hogan for months after this. Like they couldn't leave it alone.
Yeah, it wasn't the end of it.
He sort of eased up on it a little bit because Hogan and Warrior beat Slaughter, Adnan, and Mustafa, what's his face, Iron Sheik, at SummerSlam, and then he became a face again. He became a pro-America guy again. But yeah, what an epic, absolutely epic disaster.
Yeah,
that was. And yeah, I don't know if they had. I had never heard, but I never really looked into what the other possible plans could have been, or if it was just like, no, God damn it, like.
Once Vince had it in his head, this was a match, that was it. Nothing else was considered. Yeah, I don't know.
Right, yeah. Because, I mean, I think he seemed to kind of fall out of favor with the Ultimate Warrior being, I mean, maybe just, Hogan get it back and reassert his dominance. Yeah, I don't know if anybody ever pushed for that. That's interesting to look into. But yeah, that Slaughter stuff was really bad. Before we dive into the next one, Larson, would you like to pay some bills?
We can definitely do that, Steve. Let's take a quick break here. You get a word from our sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook. Steve.
Yes.
Are you ready? This is tonight. Saturday. Huge fight going down. You got lightweight champ Islam Makhachev. He's taking on featherweight champ Alexander Volkanovski. Today, Saturday, UFC 294. Woo! It's for the lightweight championship.
Oh, man. And no matter who you got winning, DraftKings Sportsbook is bringing epic action to you. New customers can bet just $5 to land $200 instant in bonus bets.
That's right, Steve. And I'm pulling up the DraftKings Sportsbook right now. I'm going to check on the latest betting odds. Yes, they have been updated. Current lines, betting odds for the massive main event, the rest of the card as well. So what are you waiting for? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code RAW. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. It's like you were doing it right there, Steve.
I was.
That's code RAW only on DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That's 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/MMA terms for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. All right, man, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. And that is number 8. Tim White suicide.
Ugh. So, again, this is an era I really wasn't watching very much, but apparently referee, Tim White, refereed WWE for a long time. Friend, worked with Andre the Giant on stuff.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
His referee career came to an end in 2004, I believe, while refereeing a Hell in a Cell match 2002, between Triple H and Chris Jericho. He injured his shoulder. Couldn't work. He tried. He had like a brief return in 2004, but re-injured his shoulder, and that was that.
Yeah.
So you think Tim White, still working for the company, he worked as an agent with Andre, put him in a backstage role. You know, there's probably a variety of jobs they could have done, and yet they thought the best use of his talents, his time, was making little videos, little shorts on .com, where the series was entitled Tim White's Lunchtime Suicide, because on Thursdays around lunchtime they release a new episode. In the first one, he's like all distraught at his bar. He's talking to Josh Matthews, and then he gets the shotgun out from behind the bar, and the camera pans over. You hear the shotgun blast, and you think, okay, wow, Tim White just killed himself during this video. And then next week he's back.
And he tries to do it again.
He used rat poison the second time or something like that.
Yeah, he tried to hang himself.
And these go on and on and on.
And it's he's unable to kill himself. These were really bad.
Yes.
And I don't know. I shouldn't even have to say that. I don't know why this happened. It's not funny.
No. No.
I mean, it's sometimes it's just like, you know, if Vince maybe had like, he would, I think, treat the WWE sometimes as like he would as his own sort of toy box when it came to creative ideas. Like, maybe this could find some life as like an absurdist series of comedy sketches in some other way, shape, or form. But like, I've seen this trope be used before in that fashion.
Yes.
But this is like, it's like, this is a pro wrestling show. Like, yes. I understand this is all Vince has to like, you know, express himself creatively. And because I have no doubt that it's just because Vince thought it was hilarious. He keeps on trying to kill himself, but he fails. Like, but it's just in horribly poor taste.
It really is.
Especially within the context of a pro wrestling show. So yeah, I don't. This is absolutely bizarre.
16 episodes they did of this.
Oh my God, I did not know it was that much. I did not know.
Yeah, 16. Much. There's a for anybody who might be interested. There's a playlist on YouTube. All the episodes. Well, I think they're all the episodes. There's 16 listed here. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yep, 16. Oh, wait. 2 are hidden. So 2 are unavailable, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, I mean, we're going to sound like a broken record. Bad.
Yeah.
And you're right. This is, especially seemingly in a period for Vince where he was trying to push the limit any way he thought possible.
It's, yeah. I mean, this is, 2004, 2005. It's, during the period of time when, he was just sort of at peak Vince, also doing the bark like a dog stuff, doing the, kiss my ass club. It's as if he took all like the salaciousness of the Attitude Era and he just tried to concentrate that as much as you could. And he tried to like double down and re-up and re-up and re-up and push it even further because, he had sort of tanked his own ratings a couple years earlier. And so he was trying to like do anything that just would get shock value in lieu of like, trying to actually create stories that people cared about.
Exactly. Yeah, that seemed to be his approach, for a good amount of time post Attitude Era.
Yeah, it was
some capacity rather than craft interesting stories with compelling characters. God damn it, pal! What can we do to pop a number?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's
and yes, the Ruthless Aggression Era is all about how salacious, how over the top can we be to garner enough controversy that people start talking about our product.
Yeah. Let's bring up this next one, number 7. Jinder Mahal, WWE Champion. Now, this one was interesting because they really took a guy who was known as a losing wrestler, Jinder Mahal.
Yes. Yeah.
And they just sort of, it was definitely an exercise. One of those interesting things that we talk about a lot. When you talk about the concept of people being ready for the world title, believable in the role of a character who is a world title holder. Well, they took a guy with Jinder Mahal who was not that at all.
Not in the eyes of the fans, that's for sure.
No. And just sort of put the title on him, gave him the role of, guy who would consistently use, the Bollywood boys and cheating methods, you're a standard heel type situation for him to win. But the fact that Jinder had never really been built to be that guy in the first place is really where this was a disconnect. And it's not like there were, fans out there demanding this or wanting to see it. There was one simple reason for this, and it kind of backfired. And that reason was they were trying to penetrate the Indian market.
Yeah. So it was April of 2017 where Jinder won a number 1 contender match to challenge for the SmackDown Championship. Eventually beat Randy Orton for it at Backlash 2017 in May. But there was no build.
Yeah, right.
They didn't take the time. They didn't take the months, even weeks, to have him put some wins together. Tell the story about how, look, he's in tremendous shape now. This means he's on a winning streak. There was none of that.
You and I laughed. I distinctly remember when he won the number 1 contendership. You and I went on the air and somebody said, "Oh, what are the chances he wins?" And I laughed. I said, "No, he's not winning this."
Yeah.
And then when he did, I was like, "Whoa, what? Did that really happen?" I have to go back and look at our reactions to this. Because I think by the time he actually won the title, we were surprised, but also it kind of felt like, oh, wait a second, they're doing something here.
Yeah.
And he might actually win this. This is coming out of nowhere, so they might have something in mind here.
Yeah. So I got some info here from the edition of Wrestling Observer newsletter from May of 2017 following Backlash. This is what Dave had to say. Normally, you would judge this based on drawing power and television ratings. Ratings are significantly down since Mahal was pushed to a main event heel spot, but is likely far more the NBA playoffs and overall decline in interest since Raw's numbers are also down. Attendance, he's talking about Backlash here. Attendance wasn't bad, but in another sense, it wasn't good either. The show drew 9,800 fans, or not a sellout. Chicago, the company's second best market outside New York, expected to be a lock for a sellout. Says, still with Mahal, none of that matters. He wasn't made champion to help the U.S. business or to be a super heel. If that happens, it's just icing on the cake. He wasn't put in the spot to headline shows and have the best main event possible. He was there for a simple reason, to build up the Indian market. So, question then is, did this work? Did making Jinder champ help the company make inroads in India? So, Forbes has a pretty extensive write-up from, I think it's October 2017, the latter third of 2017. and they got some data. There's not a whole lot of, they have to rely on quarterly reports and SEC filings to try to get some data, and some of it there's not, it's not granular enough to specify, this is revenue coming in from India, for example. I think it's by region. So according to various filings and such, there wasn't a huge increase in international revenue after Jinder won the title, nor was there a massive influx of network subscribers, seeing just a 0.3% increase internationally during Jinder's first 3 months as champion. And they also mentioned in there that WWE Shop, which they launched, I believe, WWE Shop in India around the time that Jinder became champ, didn't necessarily see a huge jump in sales either.
Yeah. Well, one of the problems...
And then Triple H beat him in India during their match.
Yeah, because people in India actually really loved Triple H. Yeah, I remember. Well, I mean, number one, I mean, he is of Indian Punjabi Sikh descent according to Wikipedia here, but he was born in Canada. And if the WWE is going to do something like this, you would think that they would build up a name in India, or like they tried to do with like the Great Khali. He was a deal over there. And then WWE, put the title on him, and he was, by that he could barely move. But Jinder wasn't a name there, so it's not like they would be. It's sort of, I don't know, condescending to think, oh, like he's just gonna be a huge hit over there. There was no familiarity, and so I wish I've been looking for every time we bring up Jinder Mahal. I always try to find this, and I can't for the life of me. But I remember ages ago, there was a tweet that I saw, and it very specifically looked at the Google Trends of the time, and how up until, because remember 2016 is well regarded, well known as a great year for the
Pretty solid
WWE.
Year,
yeah. And a lot of the names from then that were popular were really helping the company, build the image, build the brand, build their trending stats. And then when Jinder Mahal became champion, you just see this sharp red line going straight down into the ground, into the negative. And it seems like a lot of people were just like, this is bullshit. Like, this just doesn't, it just felt so over the top disingenuous that I think it caused people to tune out or to like stop giving a shit. I mean, look, I think that they did a decent job glossing him up. You and I have both spoke endlessly about how there are aspects of that run that we both appreciate. His theme song was awesome. The packaging was great.
As a whole was great. I thought him and the Singh brothers were awesome together.
Me too. I agree. But I understand why people had such an issue with it. And like the Colossus, they booked pretty strong. People had a problem with it because there was just no build there. Like there was nothing to grasp onto. And then he had like, a run with Randy Orton. He beat him a couple times, all because he cheated. I think they did another one of those the Punjabi matches.
Yeah.
I forget what they call that thing.
Prison.
Yeah, Punjabi prison, that's right. And then it was like, okay, well, we're done with this. And then remember, they did the quick switch out because the Brock Lesnar Survivor Series match was coming up. They were like, nobody wants to see that. We're going to put on AJ Styles.
Yep.
And so AJ Styles just got it off him real quick.
And then AJ had it for pretty much a year. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he had the Brock match and had it for, like you said, a year. But yeah, just awful, when they disrespect their own legacy and history, people know.
Yep.
It's like you've got a lineage that includes names like, Evil Sergeant Slaughter and Hulk Hogan, a bunch of shitholes basically. But you had built up a lot. They had built up a lot of goodwill over the past like year, especially.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh well, no, we're not in an era where we care about the creative of the company. We're just gonna toss this thing on Jinder because it doesn't mean shit to us if it's not making us a bunch of money, and we're gonna experiment in a different market now. And everybody else is like, well, shit, man, that just took me out of your product. Congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, if they just taken 3-4 months to build up Jinder in advance of this,
yeah, right,
it would have changed, I think, a lot of perception of his title run.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
You know, from the fans' eyes, it would have felt like, oh, there's been a build to this. This feels earned.
Yeah, right.
He's been put into work. He's won some matches. He's been involved in some interesting stories.
Yeah.
And it culminates in this moment. And yes, Jinder, someone who has had a narrative. I actually read an interview with Drew McIntyre talking about Jinder's title run, and Drew says there's a lot of parallels between himself and Jinder. They both got released. They went and they reinvented themselves. You know, and Jinder got in the best shape of his career.
Yeah. Oh, he was phenomenal
when he came back. You know, and he was given this opportunity, and he did the most he could with it. It's just a bummer that they dealt him kind of a bad hand in terms of the build to it, because the build was basically non-existent.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. All right, man. Let's move on to our next one, number 6. Katie Vick.
I mean, I don't know what else to say that hasn't been. You know what? I want to put this on here because it was an episode of Something to Wrestle With, where Pritchard was talking about the day they shot the scene at the bit at the
mortuary,
the funeral home,
yeah,
and how it was an actual funeral home, and it was him, and it was Triple H, and it was Vince, and Triple H and Bruce were like insistent, we can't play this straight. This has to be over the top. It's got to be. I mean, it's a terrible idea to begin with. We got to play this for laughs. We got to play this up as ridiculous as possible.
Yeah.
And Vince was insistent. No, we got to play this whole thing serious. That's where the humor is, he thought.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You know, like, that was Vince's creative vision for this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's a terrible idea. This never should have made it to television to begin with.
Yeah, I honestly don't understand anybody. I really don't understand anybody's point of view here, because I know what you're getting at. I do, but the premise itself is so bad.
Oh, it's so bad. Yes.
That, like, I don't know. I don't know that Vince's suggestion that it be played straight up isn't the right one to go with. You know, like I don't know, because when you're starting off with such an awfully bad premise that doesn't believe it belong anywhere near TV.
No.
Do you play it up as goofy as possible? Or do you add to the absurdity of it by going as straight as possible? I honestly don't know.
No, I don't know either. I just like Pritchard telling his perspective of it from his vantage point and Triple H's vantage point. It was clear as day.
It was clear, yeah. Like,
you go goofy because then at that point, how can anybody take this serious? That was essentially their viewpoint, you know? And I'm with you. I don't think either approach is good, because the whole idea is garbage. Shouldn't have been on TV.
Yeah, I just don't know how you make a decision. Like, what is the delineation there?
Because
like,
you watch the final result, and it's not like it's like serious, you know?
And do you remember? I mean, that's a good question. Do you remember when he was talking about it, like, who did they go with?
Oh, they went with Vince.
They went with Vince.
There. He calls the shots. Yeah.
So that wasn't goofy.
Yeah, I know.
That's where I'm coming at with this, is like, yeah, because Vince, I remember but it was so goofy.
I know.
So I'm curious, like, what their, you know, if they went so cartoony with it, would it have been? I honestly don't know. But regardless, it's horrible. Everybody, I mean, God, if you're listening to this, you probably know what the deal was. You know, it was Triple H and Kane feud. Kane evidently, you know, had a Chappaquiddick incident, you know, decades prior, and then Triple H was mocking that, and because he knew his secret, and that therein lies. And then he filmed this vignette where he's in a, you know, it was like a flashback or whatever. He was wearing a Kane mask, and then, you know, he does an act with a dead body, basically, and it has like probably the most vile punchline. Like,
it's so bad.
Honestly, it is.
It's so bad.
It is shocking at how, like, horrible that punchline is.
It's so bad.
It really is. Like, you know, people are like, oh, how could you get offended? It is offensive as fuck.
It is. It's super offensive. I know.
It is so offensive. But it is goofy as hell too. But it's so bad.
I'm curious. Not enough to actually want to see it. Curious what the goofy version would entail.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying.
Because I don't remember them Pritchard going into a good amount of detail on
what the difference would have been.
What the difference? It was just like they wanted to make this perfectly clear. This was to not be taken seriously, and this would be over the top goofy.
maybe the dead body would be like an obvious mannequin. You know what I mean? Like maybe it would be something like that where, or Triple H's outfit would be much, because like Triple H, if I'm not mistaken, Triple H, like his pants come down, and he's wearing those, like jock straps or something like that. And maybe like he would be coming in with like a cheesy Kane outfit, and it would be just fart sounds and wah, 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 that kind of stuff.
Cartoon horns, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right. Maybe that would be the situation. I don't know.
No, I don't know. I mean, what we saw was horrendous.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Obviously Vince's approach was not the one to take, but who's to say that Triple H and Bruce's was? I mean,
I know
the approach to take is not to do this. That's the approach to take.
That's the only approach to take.
That's the only approach to take.
Anyways,
but again, this was during that time where Vince wanted to push boundaries and garner controversy to get people to talk about his products. So maybe he just thought, all right, if we approach this as if the people involved are taking this seriously, that's the best way to gin up controversy.
No idea. I don't know. I don't know.
Whatever. It's bad. It's garbage.
It's garbage. Let's move on. Number 5. The guest host era.
So you know who you have to blame for this, Steve?
Yeah, our former president, Donald Trump. So on the June 15th, 2009 episode of Raw, Donald Trump sort of began this initiative here. And on June 22nd, McMahon, having regained ownership of Raw, announced that it would still continue on the 29th of June, with the first guest host being Batista. Yeah. Former WWE star.
Well, apparently it was in the because Vince sold Raw to Trump.
Yeah.
Then I want it back. Paid double to get it back. Mm-hmm. But in the fine print of the deal to get it back, it said that there would be a guest host of Raw, and then during their guest host duties on that episode, they would operate as a legitimate general manager and be able to do what they wanted.
Oh, okay. This period of time, I don't think I was. I know I did not. I was not actively watching during like the Trump mania. I was not actively watching that. I might have. I think I saw the Trump mania at somebody's house, but I don't think I was watching actively. So anyways, and I would watch here and there. I mean, I would always watch here and there.
Yeah. I remember seeing the Hugh Jackman.
I remember the Hugh Jackman one. Yeah.
Punched off. I remember that.
And it was, I mean, God, some of these names, and some of them were more active than others, but like, we can look at some of these, like, the first two were actual wrestlers, Batista and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. But then like Seth Green was there for a week. ZZ Top was a guest host the following week. Shaq, which makes, I mean, some of these make sense. Freddie Prinze Jr. makes sense. Dusty Rhodes, obviously.
Mark Cuban.
Trish Stratus, Mark Cuban. Yeah. But then like Al Sharpton was there. Bob Barker's a great name. Yeah. But like, that's weird. Jeremy Piven. Like, did anybody even really, I know Entourage was probably big at the time.
Was that around no, never mind. Think of something else.
I mean, Roddy Piper and Jesse Ventura on successive weeks. That's good. But then like Vern Troyer, who was he was in the public conversation, but then like Dennis Miller, who the fuck wants Dennis Miller in WWE? Like they ran him out of Monday Night Football because he was terrible at that.
Yeah, he was.
Bret Hart was there from Mike Tyson. That makes sense. Some of these make sense. William Shatner. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Jerry Springer makes some sense.
Yeah.
The Mind Freak, Chris Angel. Holy shit.
My goodness,
that's great. But then they had Pete Rose. Pete Rose made sense.
Yeah, I mean, we've had conversations with people who've deemed this the worst era of Monday Night Raw ever.
Mm-hmm. Sure,
just week after week, just insufferably bad.
Yeah, and Raw wasn't very good at the time either. Like Raw itself was not very good. But I remember watching some of these. I'm trying to remember. There was one that I saw, and I'm trying to remember which one it was. Looking at this list here. Oh man, which one was it? And it was so bad, and I'm trying to remember which one
was.
Was
that the time that was it Kevin Federline?
Yes,
was involved?
Maybe that was the one. Was that the one?
Didn't he beat John Cena?
Yeah, but no, that was. I don't think he was a guest host.
That was earlier, wasn't it?
Maybe. I'm trying to remember which one I actually watched because we were doing some video. I don't even know about what. But I watched it and I was like, mate. There was one where MacGruber guest hosted.
Yes.
That's actually kind of awesome, to be honest. I think that is the one that I saw. It was the one with MacGruber. And
there one?
Yeah, this is the thing, though. There was too much MacGruber. He was all over the episode.
Yeah. It was
and
like
I
when
like
Leslie
Will
Nielsen
Forte.
was looking for The Undertaker.
Yeah. I love Will Forte, and Kristen Wiig was in it too, but it was like, there's too much of this. It keeps on interrupting the flow of the show.
I know. So I got a quote here from Brian Gewirtz, the writer for WWE for a long time, about the genesis of the idea of the guest hosts.
Yeah.
Apparently they want to get away from the heel authority trope. And so this is the quote. The whole idea was born out of how could we just take a break from the heel GM character? That segued into what if it was a different legend every week? Who was the GM? Then it went to what if it was a different celebrity every week? And then that turned into what if we were just like Saturday Night Live, only better? Which would explain the heavy emphasis on the celebrity guest host, because if they're treating this as in not only is the celebrity kind of like, hey, introducing the show, welcome to Monday Night Raw, they're in skits throughout the show.
Yeah.
So I guess that would make sense why, the show would be broken up with, for example, MacGruber, rather than focusing on developing and building stories with the characters they have there.
Yeah. I mean, this is it's after, when did Benoit pass? Because, obviously, at a certain point, they started getting into the PG era. And it's like, I can understand that the guest host idea could be a way to mainstream up your show a little bit. That was, okay, so it was 2 years before this. Yeah. And I understand at this point they were trying to mainstream up their show. And guest host, that's a way to do it. But the way it was implemented, it was like, keep that. I don't need that in my wrestling. I don't need that in my wrestling.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's go ahead and move on to number 4. Oh, boy. Interviewing Melanie Pillman. This might, I'll be honest with you, out of everything WWE has ever done, this might be the worst segment in WWE history for me. This is the most uncomfortable thing to watch. You look at that fucking look on Vince's face and you just want to smack him, because it's like, why? What?
Why are you putting her through this?
Yeah. So Brian Pillman passed so it was In Your House 18 Bad Blood he was scheduled to fight Dude Love. And he had passed like the previous night, that morning, something like that. He was found dead in his hotel room that day in the afternoon. And so they made the announcement at the pay-per-view. And then the next night on Raw, Vince McMahon put Melanie Pillman on TV and said, how are you going to provide for your kids? That is uncomfortable as fuck. Like, really that is so over the line. It is so, it's so offensive.
It really is. It really is.
Like, I'm not easily offended, but this is so funny. He's like, the first question, no, second question, how have your kids taken it? What? Are you fucking kidding me? And she has I think Brian was 4 at the time. And she was like, he still hasn't really, processed it. He doesn't know why. Yeah. And then one of the other kids, as we know from the Dark Side stuff, one of the other kids, she was their stepmom, I think. And Brian, but the actual mom had already passed. And so her actual parents, both her parents are now dead. And so she's like, she was just been wailing away. And it's like, but it's like, instead of even have the decency, instead of saying, have you thought about as a single mom, how you're going to provide for your kids? Maybe say something like, hey, the WWF family is here for you. I'm going to make sure that you're okay. And later on, yes. a Pillman Jr., I watched a shoot interview, and he obviously he had a very complicated relationship with his mom. And he felt that she was trying to take advantage of the situation by agreeing to do this. So I'm not there. I don't know these people. I just see what I see on TV, and it's pretty gross.
It is. Yeah, you think the proper tact for Vince to take would be, here's an opportunity to say, yes, through this difficult time, we are here to help you out.
Right, yeah.
Rather than taking a step back and saying, well, we're not responsible for any of this from Vince's perspective, and saying how are you putting the onus completely on her.
Yeah. And when you think about being Vince, it's like if there was, if any of the reason for doing this could be construed as like the right thing to do somehow, some way, like the obvious thing to do is reach out to her in private, say, we've got you covered.
Yep.
And then you do like a tribute episode to him or something like that. Now, according to Pillman Jr., he did allow wrestlers to go out and do some independent tribute shows, which raised money for the family. And he was, giving money to he was still paying them the royalties for the Pillman stuff. Mm-hmm. But like, I just don't understand why anybody would ever see fit. Like, okay, so when they did like the Brody Lee tribute in AEW, it was very lovely. It was very well done. Yeah. And I forget, I remember like, -1, his kid, was it Brody Jr.?
Brody,
no.
Yeah.
Brody, yeah. He was there and they were taking care of it, but they didn't put her on camera and say, how are you going to take it? Like, this is the worst, literally the worst piece of WWE footage I can think of. The worst, the absolute worst. Mm-hmm. And I just, it's still to this day shocking to me that was even, nobody said, this is not, you can't, this is exploitative. Like, this is clearly,
it totally is.
This is clearly like the most exploitative thing you could do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. It's absolutely,
it is crazy.
It's crazy bad.
It is bad.
Anyways, moving on. Little less heavy. Number 3. Roman Reigns before the Bloodline.
I mean, that's what, like 5-year stretch? Pretty much.
Like the 5-year Roman Reigns experiment.
I think it really culminates with the dog food business. That's what he was like, I'm out of here. Until you give me something that's like befitting of my talents.
Yeah, let me write my own ticket or I'm out of here because I'm not doing this dog food shit anymore. I mean, dude, honestly, I've noticed this over the past, I don't know, couple of weeks on Twitter. People will bring up, little Roman. On Twitter, they'll have little clips of Roman Reigns promos that were clearly written by Vince. Of course, we all know the succotash stuff.
Yeah.
But just the mishandling of Roman Reigns during that period, where it was so clearly just desperate booking after desperate booking, where he's trying his best. Vince is trying his damnedest just to force feed us Roman Reigns, and it's clear that he has no clue what he has and what he could have. And he's just doing this. It goes back to the Dean Ambrose. I know who your character is. Well, clearly he has no clue what Roman Reigns should have been during that time. And there were a few moments here and there where it was like, oh, wow. Like when the Shield first broke up and during the Rumble 2014, when the crowd started to get behind Roman as a possible winner, between that time and the next year, it had all fallen apart because that crowd was booing so heavily Roman Reigns. Even The Rock was confused by it.
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking to see it, Rumble 2014, when it was clear that Daniel Bryan wasn't going to be in that Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
That the crowd literally turned to Roman and be like, he's the guy we want to win now.
You're our next guy, yeah.
We don't want Mysterio. We don't want anybody else in this match. We want Roman Reigns because at least he's the future, and he's in the most popular faction in the WWE right now.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And he had a great Rumble, didn't win it. Mm-hmm. But then to see how far they got in derailing his what seemed inevitable ascent to the main event in a year.
Yeah.
And he won that Rumble, and I've never seen The Rock look more bewildered or confused by the sounds of boos. It was like a sound he hadn't heard in a very long time. Yeah. What is this?
And it was because it was a sound not of his own making.
Yes.
It was like back then, he would get boos, and it's like, well, that's because when he debuted, he was getting boos, and that's what it was in 2015. He was like, wait, I remember this, 1996.
Yes, exactly. It was like, they're not supposed to be booing me; they're supposed to be cheering me, just like in 1996. He looked confused. He was raising Roman's hand, had this look on his face.
It's a great picture because Roman Reigns.
It really is.
He's got blood in his mouth.
I know. He's supposed to be jubilant. He just won the Royal Rumble. He's going to WrestleMania. Rock's raising his hand. It's supposed to be a huge torch passing. Rock just looks utterly confused. And it didn't stop there.
No, it didn't.
It didn't stop there.
Got worse.
They tried so often to have Roman's coronation moment by beating Brock.
Yeah.
And Vince never committed to it.
No, he didn't.
Just never did. Seth cashed into that WrestleMania.
After the tug of war segment.
30...
After the tug of war segment.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And then Brock beat him at 32. No. Triple H beat him at. I'm sorry. He
32.
beat Triple H at 32.
They had Undertaker at 33. We were there. 34. Brock beat him.
That's right. Yeah. Even he beat Roman beats the Undertaker the next year. He has Brock beat. Oh my goodness. Yeah. That's crazy.
It is crazy. It wasn't until they unified the titles that Roman got a win over Brock at WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But by then we had the head of the table. We had the tribal chief.
Yeah,
and this iteration of Roman is basically unstoppable. You see what he does now, and to think even if we could have had 75% of, I'm not necessarily talking about the character, because so much of his struggles being built to a main event inform who Roman's character is now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, the betrayal by the Shield, the fans not accepting him, not acknowledging him during his initial push. So much of that informs who Roman is now as the head of the table. But in terms of his promo ability, his character work, how his character informs his in-ring work, that we could have had those talents more so on display than we did if they could have found something that actually kind of gelled with who Roman Reigns is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, because we hear all the time, people back then were talking about, you know, Roman's this great guy. He's a locker room leader.
Yeah.
And if they just presented Joe, he would get over.
Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely crazy. And the funny thing is, like you said earlier, it took the dog food stuff for Roman Reigns to be like, if I come back, it's going to be on my terms. And it kind of feels like the tribal chief stuff really is not Vince. It's Roman and Paul Heyman, and their crew. And you know, it worked so wonderfully. And yeah, he had to say, hey, if you want me to do this, and we're going to do it my way, I'm not going to come back.
Yep.
And it's a good thing he did.
Yep.
Let's move on to number 2. Stone Cold Steve Austin turns heel. Ooh, and the ratings just absolutely plunged to the toilet.
This is one of those creative decisions. I understand as the story is told, Stone Cold felt like his run was kind of running out of steam. He he would do something fresh.
Yeah.
So my understanding is he pitched this idea to Vince to turn heel. Vince should have heard this and shot it down immediately. But my understanding is Vince felt like he owed Stone Cold, given all the work he put in, helping the company dethrone WCW, once again become the top wrestling company in the United States.
Yep.
Put WCW out of business by the time WrestleMania 17 rolled around. And he's like, all right, I owe this to you. We'll give it a try. Bad idea, Vince.
Yeah.
This is the guy that was carrying your company. I know The Rock was still huge. Triple H was on the come up. I know Mankind was pretty much done by then. You still had Undertaker. The roster was loaded with depth, and that's even before the WCW guys came over.
Yeah, right, yeah.
The foundation of the ascent of WWE during the Attitude Era was Stone Cold.
It was.
He was the one that really captured the zeitgeist, that sold shit tons of merch. You know, he was that guy. And to take such a risk with just an idea, a hunch, just this Stone Cold feeling like I need to do something different.
Well,
was such a massive gamble with the fortunes of your company.
It was such a lazy way of doing it too.
It really was.
Of 17 with, a really great match between Stone Cold and The Rock, and then for it to be
great.
It felt like, oh, what? This is crap. Like when he shook McMahon's hand, Austin never looked weaker. Yeah. And they never, honestly, like maybe they could have explored what that was, but I think they understood kind of immediately that this isn't going to work. So they went to the comedy aspect of things, which again, you and I both said, lots of really funny stuff in the comedy stuff, because Stone Cold has got some expert comedic timing, and he was obviously having fun with it. But, to lose the rattlesnake, when they probably could have gone a more interesting route with his heel turn. But again, things that just aren't planned out, and they just do it and hope for the best and see what happens. And what happened was people were tuning out in droves. Like the 2001 was not a good year for WWE. It took them a little while to recover, and they never saw the Attitude Era heights again in terms of like that mainstream interest.
Nope. Still happen to this day.
Yeah, true. All right, let's talk about number one. The women's division before like 2015.
So I put 2015 in here because that's when Charlotte, Sasha.
Yeah.
When Stephanie introduced the women's revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, of course, you had Paige, you had AJ Lee,
mm-hmm.
who kind of led the way prior to the official arrival of, as Stephanie called it, the women's revolution.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And you can go back further, and you had Chyna, you had Jazz, you had Jacqueline. There was a lot of really great women's wrestlers that would be, throughout the 90s, late 90s, 2000s. Problem was, from a creative standpoint, they were never given the chance to showcase what they could do consistently. It was all salacious bullshit.
Yeah, right.
They were to put in a position that they had to do. You mentioned earlier Trish barking like a dog.
Mm-hmm.
There was, the bikini matches, the Playboy matches.
Mm-hmm.
All this garbage that a lot of really, really talented people had to do to get TV time rather than go out there and tell interesting stories and showcase what they could do as professional wrestlers.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember because we did like I think we did like an episode about ball drops.
Yeah, not that long ago. Yeah,
and I looked up the WrestleMania matches in the preceding. Geez, it was like the preceding 20 years, 10, 15 years before like 2015, 2016 Mania.
Mm-hmm.
And it was shocking. It was either matches for like the women's title that would last all of 3 minutes, or there were a lot of Playboy themed matches.
Yeah.
Once you got to 2016, you had like Charlotte, Becky, and Sasha in a match.
Mm-hmm.
You had like Team Bad versus I forget the other team in like a 10-man match. And it was in the pre-show, but you see where it was going. And then, by the time you get to like 2019, you got a triple threat main eventing WrestleMania, which had never been done before. And so like when Vince realized, I can make money off this. And it's like, you could have been doing this for a while, because like TNA had the Knockouts division with Gail Kim anchoring some amazing talent there and really treating that division the way it should be. But like we said earlier, during the Ruthless Aggression era and after that, it was like, no, it's all going to be salaciousness. And it's going to be little. And I felt so bad for the women during the Divas eras, because especially now they're like speaking out about, man, we really tried to make the most, because they had some talent there.
They had a lot of really talented wrestlers. Yeah.
But they would just let them do Playboy matches, and everything had to be weird and salacious and over sexualized. And it's like, man, you got to figure they probably left a lot of money on the table, because
absolutely.
Now they're an integral part of what they do, making a lot more money for the company, because, a whole demographic now is can get more into the company, especially with like what's going on in NXT, where, the women are featured very heavily over there. Yeah.
Wasn't it just this last episode? There was 4 women's matches,
something like that. Yeah.
Something like that, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And to think that, and this is probably, hoping too much of Vince, but for years prior to, Stephanie officially unveiling the women's revolution, they could have been at the forefront of women's wrestling.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
If they just got away from the salacious crap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And said, all right, we have a division of really talented wrestlers here. Let's tell some interesting stories, put on some really good matches.
Mm-hmm.
And let's lead the charge in women's wrestling, rather than being reactionary. Apparently it was that one, there's Natalia and Charlotte in NXT that Vince saw and was like, the light bulb went off for him then.
Yeah.
And by that point, the Knockouts division in TNA had been putting on awesome matches for almost a decade?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And not to mention like overseas, like Shimmer Shine, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like there were all sorts of, women over there, like who eventually ended up in NXT and WWE, who were cutting their teeth over there, that could have been, featured on TV here during all that time, putting on good matches, but they had to go overseas in order to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a shame that Vince really came to that late. And like I said, man, opening up his product to a whole other demographic or limiting his product against that was really just, you got to wonder how much money was left on the table there.
Yeah, you do. You really do. Really do.
Let's talk about do we have on this? I'm not looking at the thing. Oh, yeah. We got a ton of honorable mentions here.
Oh, this could go on for several pages.
I know this first one here is one of your more egregious.
Again,
ones.
how did I keep watching wrestling after being introduced to heel Michael Cole? I should have stopped right there. It was so bad.
Like, the voice of WWE at one point was a voice that made you want to tune out of the product.
Yeah.
His incessant whining, talking shit about it's like you're supposed to do play-by-play because I don't think that
tell the story of the match.
Yeah. Oh, it's horrible. I don't care what's happening in commentary. Here's one of mine that I put on here, which is interesting and just sort of spoke to where Vince's head was at the time when they introduced fake Diesel and fake Razor Ramon.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, okay, what? You guys got these guys back because they're in WCW, and then it's just two randos. One rando ended up being Kane, but then there's also Bognar.
Yeah, Rick Bognar.
And it's like, who are these guys? What's happening to this? They don't look anything like
JR's a heel now and bringing him in? What?
Oh, man. Look what I got. Real deal.
Undertaker versus Undertaker.
Yeah, this is weird.
So they had primetime Brian Lee cosplay as Undertaker trying to fool people that he was real Undertaker, and that involved Leslie Nielsen at SummerSlam that year. Investigating, going through the arena because the Naked Gun series was such a hot thing still in, 1994?
Yeah, right.
That they had to have Leslie Nielsen investigating, try to find out where the real Undertaker was at.
My favorite thing about this is when you and I both misremembered that fake Undertaker did not have
the real Undertaker. They had the face hidden, wasn't it?
That did not come into play in this feud. Remember the face hidden thing? That's what I'm laughing about. The face mask was because Undertaker's face was fucked up. He was trying to protect it, they didn't. Yeah, that did not come into play with this Undertaker versus Undertaker.
That's strange because you think they tried something like that so you don't realize that Brian Lee looks nothing like Mark Calloway.
I know exactly. Hold on, I'm looking at this thing again. I think I'm right about this. If you look at all the pictures, nobody's wearing a mask. It was
I believe you.
It was we misremembered that before, and that always makes me laugh because when I think of Undertaker versus Undertaker, I think of them in my head squaring off on like a VHS cover, and one of them has a mask.
Yeah,
but that's
remember that too.
What it is. Don Marie and Al Wilson.
Yeah,
I vaguely remember this one.
Yeah, Al Wilson was supposed to be Torrie Wilson's dad.
Okay. Yeah,
Don
right.
Marie was feuding with Torrie Wilson.
Did he die in the storyline?
Yes.
Of sex?
Yeah.
A heart attack because of sex? Okay.
Something like that, yeah.
And then I think he recently actually passed. I think he did. And then who ran over Stone Cold Steve Austin?
What a mess. Another instance it seemed like where like they had to write Stone Cold off, so they had someone hit him with the car, and they were like, Rikishi, who was a super popular babyface.
I did it for The Rock.
Have him turn heel, claim he did it for The Rock, but Triple H was behind it the whole time.
Yeah, that was weird.
Bad.
That was weird. It was bad. It was really bad. I did it for The Rock.
Again, there's a lot more. If you have some just abysmal creative decisions from Vince McMahon, put them in the comments.
Please do.
We could do 5 episodes of this, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot.
Yeah. In the meantime, also, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And I don't know what I'm doing with my fist here because I'm about to do this. And the thumbs up, the like button, and the notify bell next to the subscribe button because we're trying to boost up our subs here on YouTube. If you're listening to this in the audio realm, do us a favor, leave us a rating, review, or a comment. That goes a long way. Also, if you want to help support Going in Raw and the Friendo Club, click that join button on YouTube. Costs $5 a month. You get bonus episodes. You get access to our huge predictions challenges every month, and you get access to our question threads as well. Or you can go to patreon.com/Stephen Larson and get the same stuff there for $5 a month. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it. Till next time, we'll see you around.
Goodbye.